I handed my younger brother the sealed envelope at our family Christmas gift exchange, watching his face light up before he tore it open. 2 months of his rent, paid in full. He read the check, looked around the crowded living room at our parents, our sister, aunts, uncles, cousins, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, tries to compensate for the fact that he's not needed by this family. The room erupted with laughter. Everyone, except me. I reached over, took the envelope back, and said quietly, "Useful to know." The laughter died faster than it started. 10 minutes of suffocating silence followed. I sat on the worn leather couch in my parents' living room, the envelope tucked back in my jacket pocket, while my younger brother Trevor fidgeted with his phone across from me. Our mother, Helen, kept trying to restart the gift exchange, her voice overly bright and strained as she held up boxes wrapped in red and green paper. Nobody moved. The Christmas tree lights blinked in the corner, casting shadows across faces that wouldn't quite look at me. Trevor glanced at me every few seconds, his jaw working like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. My sister Diane whispered to our cousin Amy near the fireplace. Uncle Brad stood by the window, arms crossed, staring out at the snow falling in the front yard. The whole house smelled like pine and cinnamon, scents that usually meant comfort but now felt wrong, artificial. My father, Gregory, cleared his throat and stood up from his recliner. He was a big man, 6 feet tall with graying hair and thick forearms from 30 years of running a hardware store. He walked past me toward the kitchen without a word, and I knew what was coming. Sure enough, 30 seconds later, he appeared in the doorway and jerked his head toward the back of the house. I followed him into the kitchen. The fluorescent light overhead hummed. Dirty dishes from dinner sat piled in the sink. Gregory leaned against the counter and crossed his arms, studying me with the same look he used to give me when I was 16 and missed curfew. "Trevor was just joking around," he said. His voice was measured, controlled. "You need to stop being so sensitive about everything." I kept my voice level. I was helping him. 3 weeks ago, he called me and said he was behind on rent. I thought I'd help him catch up. Gregory waved a hand dismissively. "You always overreact. Make everything about yourself. The kid was trying to be funny, and you turned it into this big, dramatic thing." He announced what was in the envelope to the entire room, I said. I gave it to him in private, sealed. He chose to make it public. "Because you embarrassed him by giving him money in front of everyone." Nobody knew it was money until he opened it and told them. My sister Diane walked in before Gregory could respond. She was 2 years younger than me, 30 years old, with our mother's dark hair and sharp features. She sided with our father immediately. Didn't even ask what we were discussing. "You made Trevor feel terrible," she said, pointing at me like I was a child, giving him money like he's some charity case. In front of the whole family. "It was sealed," I repeated, feeling the exhaustion creep into my voice. "In an envelope. He made the choice to announce it. You still shouldn't have done it. Now everyone thinks we're poor or something." I looked between my father and sister, saw the unified front they'd formed without even trying, and realized this conversation was pointless. They'd already decided I was wrong. The facts didn't matter. "I'm going to head out," I said, moving toward the doorway. "Oh, come on," Diane said, her tone shifting to exasperation. "Don't be like this." I walked back into the living room to grab my coat from the rack by the front door. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw Marcus's name on the screen. Marcus was my business partner in a real estate investment venture we'd been working on for 8 months. We'd found a small apartment complex outside the city, negotiated the purchase, lined up financing, and spent countless hours preparing for the deal to close. I stepped out onto the front porch to take the call, the cold December air hitting my face. Through the window, I could see my entire family gathering in the living room. They were standing in a tight cluster, whispering, gesturing toward the door. My mother's hands moved animatedly as she spoke. Trevor shook his head. Uncle Brad pointed at something. "Ford, good news," Marcus said through the phone. His voice was energized, excited. "Everything's confirmed. We close in 6 days. Your share of the profit is going to be right around $250,000. I felt a surge of relief and pride. 8 months of work, Late nights reviewing contracts, weekends spent inspecting properties. All of it was finally paying off. $250,000. It would change everything for me. That's incredible, I said. Thank you for pushing this through. We make a good team. Merry Christmas, man. I hung up and stood there for a moment, watching my breath fog in the cold air. Through the window, my mother suddenly broke away from the group and rushed toward the front door. She burst onto the porch, her face flushed, her eyes wide. Please come back inside, she said, breathless. We need to talk. Before I could respond, the door opened again. My father, Trevor, Diane, Uncle Brad, Aunt Susan, my cousins, Amy and Josh. They all poured out onto the porch. The cold didn't seem to bother them. They crowded around me, their voices overlapping. Wait, don't leave. We were just having fun. You know how family is. Trevor stepped forward, his hands raised in a placating gesture. Come on, Ford. I was kidding. You know I appreciate it. I really do. I studied their faces, saw the sudden shift in their expressions. 10 minutes ago, they were laughing at me. Now they were desperate for me to stay. Something had changed, and I knew exactly what it was. Uncle Brad had been standing right by the window when Marcus called. He'd heard everything. He'd told them about the money. The realization hit me like cold water. They didn't care about hurting me. They didn't feel bad about the humiliation. They cared about the $250,000 they now knew I was about to receive. I came here to celebrate Christmas and help my brother, I said, looking at each of them in turn. You made it clear I'm not needed, so I'll respect that. I walked down the porch steps toward my car. Behind me, my mother called out, her voice cracking. My father shouted something about being reasonable. Diane yelled that I was being childish. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away as my phone began buzzing with incoming texts and calls. The frying pan, I thought, had turned out to be my family's living room, but I had no idea I was driving straight into the fire. 3 days after Christmas, I'd ignored 47 calls and 92 texts from various family members. I sat at my kitchen table in my apartment, a modest 2-bedroom place in a quiet neighborhood about 20 minutes from downtown, reviewing paperwork for the property deal. Marcus had emailed me the final contracts. Everything was in order. We'd close in 3 days. Someone knocked on my door at 7 in the morning. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and saw my mother standing in the hallway, her coat wrapped tight against the winter cold, her face red and puffy like she'd been crying. I opened the door. Mom, what are you doing here? Can I come in? Her voice was small, fragile. I stepped aside and let her enter. She sat on my couch, twisting her hands in her lap, not looking at me. I made coffee, handed her a mug, and waited. Trevor is devastated, she finally said. He can't sleep. He feels terrible about what he said. Has he called to apologize? She didn't answer directly. He sent you messages. Lots of them. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through Trevor's texts. Most of them said things like, "Come on, man, and don't be like this, and you're overreacting." Not a single actual apology. "These aren't apologies," I said, showing her the screen. She waved it away. "He's trying. He's just proud. You know how he is." I do know how he is. That's why I was trying to help him. My mother's face crumpled. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. He's going to lose his apartment, Ford. He lost his deposit. The landlord is threatening to evict him. He has 3 weeks. I set down my coffee mug carefully. He told me 3 weeks ago he was 1 month behind on rent. That's why I gave him the check. For 2 months. To get him current and give him a buffer. Well, things have gotten worse. Where did his money go? She looked away, stared at the wall. I don't know. He's had expenses. What kind of expenses? I don't know, Ford. I'm not his accountant. I'm his mother. Our mother. And I'm asking you to help your brother. The words hung in the air between us. Family takes care of family. I'd heard that phrase my entire life, usually right before someone asked me for something. My phone rang. Marcus. I stepped into the bedroom to take the call. We've got a weird situation, Marcus said, his voice tense. Someone's been calling the office, asking questions about your financial stake in the deal. My stomach dropped. Who? They claimed to be family. Said they were doing due diligence. I told them we don't discuss partner finances with anyone, but I traced the number after they hung up. He paused. It was your father. I closed my eyes, felt anger rising in my chest. When did he call? Yesterday afternoon. Twice. Different questions each time. Wanted to know how much you were getting, when you were getting it, whether you had other investments. What did you tell him? Nothing. But Ford, this is concerning. Why is your family investigating your finances? I thanked Marcus and ended the call. When I returned to the living room, my mother was still on the couch, but now she was looking at me with something between hope and calculation. I need to go, she said, standing. Just think about Trevor. Please. After she left, I called my father. He answered on the first ring. Why are you calling Marcus? I asked. No preamble. Silence. Then, I wanted to understand your finances. Why? Before making family decisions. What decisions? He sighed. Like I was being difficult. The family has been talking. Once your deal closes, you'll have resources. We think you should invest in the family. We? Your mother and I. Trevor. Diane. Some of the extended family. You've been planning this? Planning is a strong word. Discussing. We've known about your real estate thing since Thanksgiving. That stopped me. How did you know about it at Thanksgiving? Trevor mentioned it. Trevor. I thought back to Thanksgiving dinner. I'd brought my laptop to show my cousin Amy some photos from a hiking trip. I'd left it on the kitchen counter when I went to the bathroom. Trevor must have gone through it. Must have seen the emails about the deal. Must have told the entire family. The Christmas gift exchange suddenly made sense. It wasn't random cruelty. It was intentional. They wanted me to feel small, unwanted, obligated. They wanted me off balance so when they asked for money, I'd be eager to prove my worth. I'm not investing in anything, I said. Leave Marcus alone. Leave me alone. I hung up and blocked my father's number. 2 hours later, my sister Diane showed up at my workplace. I worked at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown, and we had a policy about visitors needing to check in at the front desk. Diane ignored the policy. She walked right into the lobby during the morning rush and started shouting my name. Ford, I know you're here. You need to talk to us. Security approached her. My boss, a patient man named Alan, came out of his office looking confused. Colleagues stopped in the hallway, staring. My face burned with embarrassment. I walked quickly to the lobby. Diane, you need to leave. Not until you stop being selfish. Our family needs you, and you're acting like we don't exist. This is my workplace. You can't do this here. Then answer your phone. Talk to us. Security escorted her out, but the damage was done. Alan pulled me aside into a conference room and closed the door. Is everything okay at home? He asked. Family issues. I'm handling it. Ford, you're up for a promotion. The senior partners are watching everyone closely. I need to know this won't become a pattern. It won't. I'm sorry, but I could see doubt in his eyes. Professional reputation, built over 5 years of solid work, suddenly questioned because my sister had thrown a tantrum in the lobby. That afternoon, I blocked everyone's numbers except my Aunt Susan, the only family member who hadn't laughed at Christmas. I focused on the deal paperwork, tried to ignore the knot of anxiety in my stomach. The next morning, I received a letter from a law firm. Inside was a demand letter on official letterhead. My father's attorney claimed I had verbally promised to invest $50,000 in Gregory's hardware store. The letter stated that Gregory had relied on this promise, made business decisions based on it, and was now demanding I fulfill my obligation. If I didn't comply within 30 days, they would file suit. I read the letter 3 times, disbelief turning to rage. I had never promised any such thing. I'd barely even discussed my father's store with him in the past year. This was completely fabricated. I called an attorney that afternoon, a woman named Janet who specialized in business disputes. She reviewed the letter and shook her head. It's baseless. Verbal contracts about this amount of money are difficult to enforce, and without any evidence of your promise, they have no case. So I just ignore it? You could. But if they actually file suit, you'll need to defend yourself. That costs money. How much? Could be 5 to 10,000 in legal fees. Maybe more if it drags out. I left her office feeling sick. My family was willing to lie, to create false legal claims, to cost me thousands of dollars, all to force me to give them money. The fire was getting hotter. The real estate deal closed on schedule. $250,000 appeared in my bank account on a cold Thursday morning in early January. I stared at the balance on my phone screen, feeling a complicated mix of pride and dread. Pride because I'd earned this through hard work and smart decisions. Dread because I knew what was coming. I was right. Within 3 hours, Trevor posted on social media. A long, carefully crafted post about family members who get rich and forget where they came from. He didn't name me directly, but he included enough details that anyone who knew our family would understand exactly who he meant. He talked about growing up together, about how we used to share everything, about how money changes people. He ended with a quote about blood being thicker than water. The comments flooded in. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, family friends from our hometown, people from high school, all of them expressing sympathy for Trevor, disappointment in the unnamed family member who'd abandoned him. Some comments were harsher, calling the unnamed person greedy, selfish, heartless. My phone rang. Aunt Susan, my one ally. "Have you seen Trevor's post?" she asked. "I'm looking at it now. Ford, I need to tell you something. Your father has been borrowing money from people. From me, from your Uncle Brad, from cousins. He's been telling everyone that you promised to pay them back once your deal closed." My hand tightened around the phone. "How much?" "I don't know the total, but he owes me $5,000. He told me you'd agreed to cover his debts. He said you were helping the whole family get back on track. I never agreed to any of that. I believe you. But Ford, he's told a lot of people, and they're expecting payment." Over the next 2 days, I received calls from 3 different relatives, each one demanding repayment of loans they'd given to Gregory, amounts ranging from $3,000 to $8,000. When I explained I'd never authorized these loans, never promised anything, they didn't believe me, or they didn't care. My cousin Josh called me a liar, said I was trying to weasel out of family obligations. Uncle Brad sent me a long text message about honor and responsibility. Aunt Carol told me I was breaking my mother's heart. Then Trevor posted again. This time he claimed I'd stolen the Christmas rent money back and left him homeless. He said I'd humiliated him in front of the family, then taken back the help I'd offered just to be cruel. The post included a photo of an eviction notice. I called Trevor's landlord, a man named Mr. Patterson, whose number I had from writing the original rent check. The conversation was short. "Is Trevor being evicted?" I asked. "No. He's 1 month behind, but we worked out a payment plan. He just signed a lease renewal last week. He's not facing eviction, not unless he stops making payments." I thanked him and hung up. Trevor had lied about everything. The crisis, the desperation, the eviction notice, all fabricated to manipulate me and turn the family against me. The next blow came at work. Alan called me into his office on a Tuesday afternoon. He looked uncomfortable, wouldn't quite meet my eyes. "We received an email," he said, "from someone claiming to be concerned about your well-being." "What kind of email?" "It was sent to HR. Anonymous sender. It said you're unstable, that you have serious family problems affecting your judgment, that the company should be aware before considering you for promotion." He slid a printed page across the desk. It included screenshots of social media posts. Your brother's posts. I read the email. It was carefully worded, expressed concern rather than making direct accusations, but the message was clear. I was a liability. "This isn't true," I said. "My family is trying to manipulate me into giving them money. They're creating a false narrative. I believe you, Ford, but the senior partners are concerned. They're putting your promotion on hold, pending review." "Review of what?" "Your judgment, your stability. Whether personal issues are impacting your professional performance." I left his office numb. My family wasn't just asking for money anymore. They were actively destroying my professional reputation, sabotaging my career, all to force compliance. That evening, my attorney Janet called with more bad news. Your father filed the lawsuit. It's official. You're being sued for $50,000. Based on a verbal promise I never made. Yes. And he's found a witness. Your Uncle Brad is willing to testify that he heard you make the promise at Thanksgiving dinner. I remembered Uncle Brad standing by the window at Christmas, overhearing my conversation with Marcus. The same Uncle Brad who now claimed I owed him money for a loan I never authorized. He's lying, I said. I know. But he'll swear to it under oath. That creates credibility issues. A jury might believe him. What are my options? We fight it. Prepare for trial. But Ford, litigation is expensive and time-consuming. Even if you win, you'll spend $15,000 to $20,000 in legal fees. If you lose, you pay the $50,000 plus costs. You could be looking at $70,000 total. I sat alone in my apartment that night, calculator in hand, adding up the damages. The promotion I'd lost. At least $20,000 per year in additional income. Legal fees. $15,000 to $20,000 minimum. Potential judgment against me. $50,000. The loans Gregory had taken in my name, that relatives were demanding I pay. Over $30,000. My professional reputation. Damaged. Maybe irreparably. Total financial loss. Over $115,000. Plus the incalculable cost to my mental health and future career prospects. I thought about leaving, packing up, moving to another city, starting over somewhere my family couldn't find me. It seemed easier than fighting. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. One sentence. Last chance. Pay what we need, or lose this family forever. I didn't respond. The next morning, I discovered that Trevor had started a GoFundMe campaign. The title was, Help Me Survive Family Abandonment. The description painted me as a wealthy, heartless brother who had promised help, then stolen it back out of spite. It claimed I'd left him homeless and struggling. It asked for donations to help him get back on his feet. The campaign had raised $12,000. $12,000 from strangers who believed Trevor's lies. People with kind hearts who thought they were helping someone in need, not funding a manipulation scheme. I stared at my laptop screen, watching the donation total climb, and realized my family had weaponized the entire community against me. They'd turned my generosity into proof of my cruelty. They'd made themselves victims and me, the villain. The fire wasn't just hot anymore. It was consuming everything. The message came at 11 at night, 2 weeks after Trevor's GoFundMe launched. A text from Diane. Mom's in the ER. This is your fault. If something happens to her, we'll never forgive you. I drove to the hospital through empty streets, my heart racing, terrified that my mother was seriously ill. I kept thinking about her last visit to my apartment. How tired she'd looked. How stressed. What if the pressure of all this family fighting had caused something terrible? What if she'd had a heart attack or a stroke? I arrived at the emergency room and rushed inside. My entire family sat in the waiting area. Gregory, Trevor, Diane, Uncle Brad, Aunt Carol, cousins Josh and Amy. They all turned to look at me when I entered. Their faces weren't worried. They were cold, hostile, accusing. Where's Mom? I asked, looking around frantically. In a room. Resting, Gregory said. He didn't stand up. What happened? Is she okay? She had an episode, Diane said. Her arms crossed. Stress. Because of you. A doctor emerged from the back. A young woman with dark circles under her eyes from a long shift. She looked at me. Are you Ford? Yes. How is she? What happened? The doctor gestured for me to step aside, away from my family. When we were out of earshot, her expression softened. Your mother's test came back normal. No heart attack, no stroke, no physical problems. She had an anxiety attack. We've given her something to calm down, and she'll be fine to go home soon. Relief washed over me. Thank you. She mentioned there's been family stress. I'd recommend she follow up with her regular doctor and perhaps consider counseling for anxiety management. I nodded, and the doctor walked away. When I returned to the waiting area, my mother appeared in the doorway leading to the patient rooms. She looked small in a hospital gown, her hair messy, her eyes red. Ford, she said, her voice breaking. Come here. I followed her into a private room. She sat on the edge of the hospital bed and patted the space beside her. I sat down, and she immediately grabbed my hand. I can't take this anymore, she said, tears streaming down her face. Everyone is fighting. The family is falling apart. I'm so stressed I ended up here. Mom, I'm sorry you're stressed, but I didn't create this situation. You need to fix it. Please, just help Trevor so everyone can move on. Help him with what? He lied about being evicted. He's running a fundraising scam. He's not the victim here. She squeezed my hand tighter. Maybe your father exaggerated some things. Maybe Trevor made mistakes. But they're family. We forgive family. What about Dad's lawsuit? The fake loans? Her eyes slid away from mine. Your father is desperate. The store is in trouble. What kind of trouble? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a small voice, we're in debt. $70,000. Credit cards, loans. We're going to lose everything. The truth, finally. How did you get $70,000 in debt? The store hasn't been profitable in years. We've been borrowing to keep it open. And your father? She trailed off. What about him? He has a gambling problem. He's been going to the casino every Thursday for 2 years. I only found out 6 months ago. I pulled my hand away from hers. You knew he had a gambling problem and you didn't tell me? You let him borrow money from family members, lie about me promising to pay them back, and you said nothing? I was trying to protect him. To protect our family. By letting him destroy mine? She reached for me again, but I stood up. Ford, please. We need you. If we lose the store, we lose everything. Our house is collateral. We'll be homeless. That's not my responsibility. You're our son, and you're supposed to be my mother. But you stood by while Dad sued me for money I don't owe, while Trevor lied about me online, while Diane sabotaged my career. You participated in all of it. I didn't know it would go this far. You knew enough. I left the room. In the hallway, Trevor was waiting with 2 of our cousins, Josh and Amy. They blocked my path to the exit. We need to talk, Trevor said. Move. Not until you agree to help. $20,000. Right now. Write the check, and we'll leave you alone. I'm not giving you anything. Trevor stepped closer, his face inches from mine. You owe us. I don't owe you anything. He shoved me. Not hard enough to knock me down, but hard enough that I stumbled back into the wall. Josh and Amy didn't intervene. They just stood there, watching. You think you're better than us? Trevor said, his voice rising. You think your money makes you special? A security guard appeared at the end of the hallway. Is there a problem here? Trevor stepped back immediately, hands up. No problem. Just talking to my brother. The guard looked at me. Sir? I'm leaving, I said. Trevor called after me as I walked away. This isn't over, Ford. You can't ignore us forever. I made it to my car, locked the doors, and sat there shaking. My brother had physically intimidated me in a hospital. My cousins had watched and done nothing. My mother had tried to use her anxiety attack as leverage. My family wasn't just asking for money anymore. They were threatening me. I drove home, checked all my locks, and tried to sleep. But at 3 a.m, a noise woke me. I got up and found my apartment door was slightly ajar. I knew I'd locked it. My stomach dropped as I walked through the rooms, turning on lights. Someone had been inside. My desk drawers were open, papers scattered. My filing cabinet had been rifled through. My laptop was gone. The laptop with all my financial records, passwords saved in the browser, business documents from the real estate deal. I called the police. They came, took a report, dusted for fingerprints. I checked my bank accounts from my phone. Someone had attempted to transfer $15,000 from my business account at 2:30 in the morning. My bank had blocked the transaction and flagged it as suspicious. I called the bank's fraud department. They traced the attempt. The IP address was in Trevor's neighborhood, specifically from his apartment building. The officer taking my report was a middle-aged man with gray hair and tired eyes. When I explained the situation, told him about the family conflict and the attempted transfer, he looked uncomfortable. I know your family, he said. Grew up with your father. Good people. Good people don't break into apartments and try to steal money. Have you considered that maybe this is just a family dispute that got out of hand? Maybe you should try to work it out without involving the law. I stared at him. Someone broke into my home, stole my property, attempted identity theft. And you're telling me to work it out? I'm saying family matters can be complicated. Sometimes it's better to handle things privately. He filed the report, but I could tell he wasn't taking it seriously. Even the police, people who were supposed to protect me, were siding with my family. I spent the next day changing every password I had, moving money to new accounts, setting up two-factor authentication on everything. I called my attorney Janet and told her what happened. "This is escalating," she said. "Have you considered just paying them? Might be cheaper than fighting. I'm not rewarding their behavior." "Then you need to be prepared for this to get worse before it gets better." She was right. That evening, I received another text from my mother. "Last chance. Pay what we need, or lose this family forever." I didn't lose my family that night. I realized I'd never really had them at all. 2 weeks passed. The lawsuit moved forward. Gregory's attorney filed motions and discovery requests. My attorney Janet racked up billable hours responding. The meter was running on my legal defense, currently at $11,000 and climbing. At work, the promotion remained frozen. Alan apologized but explained the senior partners needed time to evaluate the situation. Meanwhile, I continued doing my job, trying to act normal, while my life crumbled around me. Colleagues who used to chat with me at the coffee machine now avoided eye contact. Word had spread about the scene Diane had caused, about my family drama affecting my work. I was drowning, stressed, exhausted, barely sleeping. Every night I lay awake wondering if someone would break into my apartment again, if my family would find new ways to hurt me, if I should just give them money and end this nightmare. Marcus checked on me regularly. He could see the toll this was taking. "Ford, you can't let them destroy you. Stand firm." "I don't know if I can," I admitted during one of our phone calls. "It's getting too expensive, too damaging. If you give in now, they'll never stop. They'll come back for more. You know that." I did know that, but knowing it didn't make the fight any easier. Then Aunt Susan called me on a Thursday evening. Her voice was urgent, almost whispered. "I need to see you, tonight. Don't tell anyone I'm coming." She arrived at my apartment an hour later, looking nervous, constantly checking over her shoulder. I made coffee, and we sat at my kitchen table. "I've been doing some investigating," she said, pulling out her phone, talking to people, looking into things. "Ford, this was planned." What was planned? All of it. The Christmas humiliation, the pressure campaign, the lawsuit, everything. She scrolled through her phone and turned the screen toward me. "Look at these text messages." I read the first screenshot. It was from a group chat. The participants were Gregory, Helen, Trevor, and Diane. The date was October 28th, nearly 2 months before Christmas. Gregory. Trevor confirmed it. "Ford's real estate deal closes in December. He's getting around $250,000. Helen. "That's perfect timing. We can work with that." Diane. "How do we approach him?" Trevor. "We don't. Not directly. We make him feel like he needs to prove himself." I scrolled to the next screenshot. Gregory. "The Christmas gift exchange is perfect. We humiliate him in front of everyone. Make him feel small and unwanted." Trevor. "Then we swoop in with the emergency. He'll pay up to prove his worth to the family." Diane. "What if he doesn't?" Gregory. "Then we escalate. I've already talked to Brad and Carol. They're on board." I looked up at Susan, my hands shaking. "Where did you get these?" "I borrowed Diane's phone last week when I was at her house. She left it on the counter. I knew something was wrong, so I looked. She showed me more screenshots. There's more. Keep reading." Helen. "The hospital play always works on Ford. He's too soft. If we can make him think I'm having a health crisis, he'll cave." Diane. "I'll handle the workplace angle. Anonymous email to his company. Make him look unstable. That'll make him desperate." Trevor. "And if none of that works, I'll start the fundraiser. Public pressure is powerful." I read message after message. Weeks of planning, coordination, strategy sessions on how to extract money from me. They'd even practice what to say, how to phrase things, when to apply pressure, and when to back off temporarily. They've been coaching each other, Susan said quietly. Every conversation you've had with them, every plea from your mother, every threat from Trevor, it was all scripted, all designed to break you down. I felt sick. You're sure this is real? I took screenshots of the screenshots on Diane's phone. These are direct from their group chat. Why are you showing me this? Because you're my nephew and I love you. Because what they're doing is wrong. And because I've watched them destroy you for weeks, and I can't stay silent anymore. I sat back in my chair, processing this information. My family hadn't just been pressuring me. They'd been running a coordinated manipulation campaign for months. Since October. Since before I'd even known my deal was closing. Trevor went through your laptop at Thanksgiving, Susan continued. He told everyone about the deal that night. Gregory saw an opportunity to solve all their financial problems. They brought in Diane, then Brad and Carol, and planned the whole thing. The lawsuit? Part of the plan. Gregory knew it was baseless, but he also knew it would cost you money to defend, drain your resources, make you more willing to settle. Trevor's eviction story? Complete fiction. He signed a lease renewal 2 days before Christmas. Mom's hospital visit? Staged. Helen took anxiety medication, went to the ER, and called everyone to make you look like the villain. Every event of the past month rearranged itself in my mind. Nothing had been genuine. Every crisis had been manufactured. Every emotional plea had been calculated manipulation. What do I do with this? I asked. Susan stood up. Whatever you think is right. But Ford, you need to protect yourself. They're not going to stop. They're desperate. And desperate people do terrible things. After she left, I sat alone with the screenshots, reading them over and over. The words blurred together. The betrayal went deeper than I'd imagined. This wasn't family making bad decisions under pressure. This was premeditated, organized fraud. I forwarded the screenshots to Janet, my attorney. She called me within minutes. This changes everything, she said. This is evidence of fraud, conspiracy, and possibly extortion. We can use this. How? Countersuit. We go on offense. Sue them for fraud and emotional distress. File criminal complaints. We turn the tables. They're my family. Ford, they stopped being your family when they started planning how to rob you. I didn't sleep that night. But for the first time in weeks, it wasn't because of fear or stress. It was because I was planning my response. I met with a new attorney on Monday morning. Her name was Sharon, and she specialized in fraud and defamation cases. I'd found her through a referral from Marcus, who said she was aggressive, strategic, and didn't back down. Sharon's office was downtown, modern and sleek. She sat across from me in a leather chair and reviewed all the evidence I'd brought. The text message screenshots from Susan, bank records showing the attempted unauthorized transfer, evidence of Trevor's lies about eviction, documentation of Gregory's fake loans to relatives, screenshots of the false social media posts, and fraudulent GoFundMe campaign. She spent 30 minutes reading everything. Then she looked up at me with a slight smile. This is one of the clearest cases of coordinated fraud I've seen. We have multiple causes of action here. Fraud, defamation, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted theft, intentional infliction of emotional distress. And with the text messages, we have evidence of intent. They planned this. What are my options? We file a countersuit against your father, immediately. We add Trevor, Diane, and your mother as co-defendants. We seek damages for the attempted theft, for harm to your professional reputation, for emotional distress. We file criminal complaints with the police for the identity theft attempt and the break-in. We report the GoFundMe to the platform for fraud. We send cease and desist letters to everyone involved, demanding they retract all false statements. Will it work? Ford, you have them dead to rights. The question isn't whether we can win. It's how much damage we want to do on the way to winning. Over the next 3 days, Sharon's office executed the plan with military precision. The countersuit was filed on Wednesday. Gregory's attorney received it by courier that afternoon. According to Sharon, he called her within an hour, sounding panicked. He wants to negotiate, Sharon told me. He knows they're in trouble. What did you say? I said we'll consider negotiations after discovery is complete. I want to depose all of them under oath first. Make them explain their text messages in legal proceedings. Trevor's criminal complaint moved forward faster than I expected. The attempted bank transfer, combined with the IP address evidence and the break-in report, was enough for the police to get serious. 2 detectives showed up at Trevor's apartment on Thursday morning with a warrant to search for my stolen laptop. They found it hidden in his bedroom closet, along with a notebook containing my account numbers and passwords. He'd been planning something bigger than one failed transfer. The detectives also found stolen property from other sources. Credit cards that didn't belong to him, fake IDs, evidence of previous scams. Trevor was arrested that afternoon, charged with attempted identity theft, computer fraud, possession of stolen property, and multiple counts of credit card fraud. Apparently, scamming family members was just the latest in a pattern of behavior. The GoFundMe investigation moved even faster. I'd sent Sharon's detailed evidence package to the platform's fraud department, including proof that Trevor had lied about being evicted and that he'd been running a coordinated scheme. The platform shut down the fundraiser immediately, froze the funds, and began the process of returning all $12,000 to donors. They also banned Trevor from ever using their platform again and reported him to law enforcement. The cease and desist letters went out to Trevor and Diane on Friday. Both were required to remove all false social media posts within 48 hours or face additional legal action. Trevor's posts came down that evening. Diane's took until Saturday morning, but they came down too. At work, Sharon sent a formal letter to my company's legal department. The letter outlined the anonymous email as part of a coordinated harassment campaign, provided evidence that Diane had sent it as part of a fraud scheme, and suggested that any employment decisions based on that email might expose the company to liability. The letter was professionally worded, but the threat was clear. Alan called me into his office on Monday morning. His entire demeanor had changed. The legal department reviewed everything, he said. We owe you an apology. Your promotion is approved, effective immediately, with back pay from the original date it should have gone through. We're also issuing a formal apology for how the situation was handled. Thank you, I said, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. We're also banning your sister from company property permanently. If she comes here again, we'll have her arrested for trespassing. My professional reputation, damaged over the past month, began to repair itself. Colleagues who'd been avoiding me started talking to me again. The senior partners made a point of publicly welcoming me into the leadership team, but the real turning point came on Tuesday afternoon. Uncle Brad showed up at Sharon's office, unannounced, asking to speak with me. Sharon allowed it but sat in on the meeting. Brad looked terrible. He'd lost weight, his face was drawn, and his hands trembled as he sat down across from me. I can't do this, he said without preamble. I can't lie for them. What do you mean? Sharon asked. Gregory paid me $5,000 to testify that I heard Ford promise money at Thanksgiving. It's not true. I wasn't even in the room when they were talking about the hardware store. Gregory told me what to say, practiced it with me. But I can't do it. I can't commit perjury. Sharon leaned forward. Are you willing to sign an affidavit stating this? Yes. And I'll testify for Ford if needed. Gregory threatened me. Said if I didn't help him, he'd ruin my credit. He said he had dirt on me. But I'm done. This whole thing is wrong. Brad signed the affidavit that afternoon. With his testimony, Gregory's lawsuit collapsed completely. His attorney filed a motion to dismiss the next day, trying to end the case before Gregory faced consequences for perjury and fraud. Sharon objected to the dismissal. They filed a frivolous lawsuit based on lies. We're seeking sanctions. More family members started coming forward. Over the next week, 5 different relatives contacted me privately. They apologized for participating in the pressure campaign. They explained that Gregory had lied to them, told them I'd agreed to pay his debts, manipulated them into demanding money from me. Some had been threatened, some had been lied to. All of them felt terrible. My cousin Amy sent me a long email detailing how Gregory had stolen money from her savings account 2 years ago, using account information he'd gotten when she asked him to help her set up online banking. He'd taken $3,000, and when she confronted him, He'd threatened to tell lies about her to the family. She'd stayed quiet out of fear. Uncle Brad revealed that Gregory had been embezzling from the hardware store for 3 years. Not just gambling. He'd been creating false invoices, paying fake vendors that were actually just accounts he controlled, siphoning money steadily. The hardware store was failing not because of market conditions but because Gregory had been stealing from it. The conspiracy was bigger than I'd realized. Gregory and Helen had been running scams on family members for years, and the attempt to get my money was just their most ambitious scheme yet. Sharon compiled all this evidence into an overwhelming case. By the end of the 3rd week, we had affidavits from 8 relatives, bank records proving Gregory's theft and fraud, documentation of threats and coercion, and the original text messages showing premeditation. Gregory's attorney called Sharon to discuss settlement. Sharon told him we weren't interested in settlement. We were interested in consequences. The final confrontation came on a Wednesday night. Trevor, desperate and cornered, showed up at my apartment building at midnight. He was drunk, angry, and aggressive. He pounded on the lobby door, shouting my name. Building security called the police. I watched from my 4th-floor window as 2 squad cars arrived. Trevor tried to run. They caught him in the parking lot. While they were arresting him for trespassing and disorderly conduct, one officer ran his name and discovered there was an outstanding warrant for unpaid traffic fines. Trevor was taken to jail. During the booking process, officers searched his car, which was parked illegally in the fire lane. Inside, they found stolen credit cards, fake IDs, and equipment for making counterfeit documents. What had started as a drunk trespassing arrest turned into multiple felony charges. I learned later that Trevor had been running credit card scams for over a year, targeting not just family but strangers. He'd been using stolen identities to open accounts, max them out, and disappear. My attempt to help him with rent had been funding his criminal enterprise. The dominoes were falling, and I was no longer the one being crushed beneath them. 3 months after Christmas, I sat in a courtroom as a judge reviewed the motion to dismiss Gregory's lawsuit. My attorney Sharon stood beside me, calm and confident. Across the aisle, Gregory sat with his attorney, both looking defeated. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense, read through the evidence we'd submitted. The text messages, the affidavits from family members, Brad's confession about being paid to lie, the documentation of Gregory's embezzlement and fraud. She looked up and addressed Gregory directly. "Sir, you filed a lawsuit claiming your son verbally promised you $50,000. The evidence shows this claim was entirely fabricated. You coordinated with family members to create false testimony. You attempted to commit perjury. This is not a simple family dispute. This is fraud." She dismissed the lawsuit with prejudice, meaning Gregory could never file it again. Then she went further. "I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation of perjury and fraud. I'm also ordering you to pay the defendant's legal fees in full." She named a figure, $19,000. "You will not use the legal system to harass your family members. Do you understand?" Gregory nodded, silent. His attorney helped him stand, and they left the courtroom without looking at me. Sharon turned to me and smiled. That's what justice looks like. At work, things had improved dramatically. The promotion came with a significant raise and a corner office. The senior partners apologized formally and informally. My boss, Alan, made a point of praising my work in team meetings, helping rebuild my reputation. Colleagues who'd witnessed Diane's scene now saw me as the victim of harassment, not someone with judgment problems. The woman in HR who'd mishandled the anonymous email situation was quietly transferred to a different department. The company implemented new policies about investigating harassment claims. I even received a formal apology letter from the CEO, acknowledging that the company had failed to protect me. My professional reputation, which had been so damaged, was now stronger than before. People saw me as someone who'd handled a terrible situation with grace and strength. The family aftermath was more complicated. Gregory and Helen's financial situation collapsed completely. The hardware store closed after 37 years in business, unable to survive without Gregory's embezzlement to supplement the legitimate income. They declared bankruptcy, lost their house, and moved into a small rental apartment across town. Trevor accepted a plea deal on multiple charges: attempted identity theft, credit card fraud, possession of stolen property, and creating false documents. He received 3 years of probation, was ordered to pay restitution to victims, and had to perform 500 hours of community service. His criminal record would make finding decent employment difficult for years. Diane moved to another state, Arizona, claiming she needed a fresh start. I heard through Aunt Susan that she'd been fired from her job after the company learned about her role in sending false harassment emails. Her reputation in our hometown was ruined. Helen tried to reach out several times through intermediaries. Aunt Susan, mainly. Susan would call and gently suggest that Helen wanted to talk, wanted to apologize, wanted to try to rebuild some kind of relationship. 6 months after Christmas, I finally agreed to meet her. Not because I was ready to forgive, but because Susan convinced me that hearing her out wouldn't hurt anything. We met at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory, public enough that neither of us could make a scene. Helen looked like she'd aged 10 years and 6 months. Her hair had more gray. Her face was thinner. She wore an old coat I remembered from years ago, back when they still had money. She ordered coffee, but didn't drink it. Just held the cup in both hands. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. Her voice was small, broken, nothing like the forceful woman who'd shown up at my apartment demanding I help Trevor. I didn't respond, just waited. "I want to explain," she continued. "Not to make excuses, just to explain." Okay. When Gregory started having money problems, I convinced myself it was temporary. The store would recover. The gambling would stop. I told myself lies because the truth was too scary. Then Trevor started having legal problems, spending money on things I didn't understand, and I convinced myself that was temporary too. She finally looked at me. "When we found out about your real estate deal, Gregory said it was the answer, that you'd want to help family, that we'd ask and you'd say yes and everything would be fine." I believed him because I wanted to believe him. "So you helped him plan to manipulate and defraud me?" "Yes," she said it simply. No argument. "We told ourselves it wasn't really fraud because you were family and family helps each other. We convinced ourselves you owed us somehow, that your success was connected to our sacrifices when you were growing up. It was twisted thinking, but we needed it to be true. You staged a hospital visit to manipulate me." I did. "I took pills to make myself anxious, went to the ER, called everyone to make you look bad. It was calculated and cruel." Tears ran down her face. "I was so focused on solving our problems that I didn't care who I hurt. Not even my own son." We sat in silence for a moment. The coffee shop was busy, people coming and going, living their normal lives, while we sat in the wreckage of our family. "I lost you," Helen said quietly. "That's the real cost. Gregory lost the store. Trevor lost his freedom. Diane lost her job. But I lost you, and you're the one who actually mattered." I didn't know what to say to that. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she continued. "I don't deserve forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand what we did. I understand that we destroyed something that can't be fixed. And I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry." She stood up to leave. I watched her put on her coat, pick up her purse, prepare to walk out of my life probably forever. "Mom," I said. She turned back. "I'm not ready to have a relationship. I don't know if I ever will be, but I don't hate you." She nodded, fresh tears falling. "That's more than I deserve. Thank you, Ford." I watched her walk out of the coffee shop and disappear into the crowd on the sidewalk. I felt sad, but also relieved. The conversation had given me closure I didn't know I needed. Over the next months, I built a new life. Aunt Susan became more than an ally. She became a genuine friend. We met for coffee every Thursday morning before work. She introduced me to other family members who'd never been part of Gregory's schemes. Cousins I barely knew who turned out to be good people. Marcus and I completed 2 more real estate deals, both successful. Our partnership grew stronger. He'd stood by me during the worst of the family crisis, never once suggesting I should give in, always encouraging me to fight. That kind of loyalty meant everything. The 8 relatives who'd come forward to support me stayed in my life. We formed our own smaller, healthier family circle. Aunt Susan, Uncle Brad who'd redeemed himself, my cousin Amy who'd been victimized by Gregory too, and others. We celebrated birthdays, had dinners, actually enjoyed each other's company without the toxicity that had defined my immediate family. Work continued to go well. I was promoted again a year later, made senior director of my department, received praise and recognition for projects I led. The corner office became a place where I mentored younger employees, helped them navigate their careers, built a reputation as someone who valued people over politics. I dated, made new friends outside of work and family, joined a hiking club, traveled to places I'd always wanted to see. I built a life that was mine, not defined by family obligations or expectations or manipulation. Christmas came around again, 1 year after the envelope. Aunt Susan hosted a small gathering at her house. Just the healthy family circle, about 12 people total. We exchanged modest gifts, nothing extravagant. Someone made a joke about sealed envelopes, and everyone laughed, including me. It didn't hurt anymore. It was just a story now, something that had happened but didn't define me. Susan raised her glass of wine and said, "To family, the real kind." We all toasted. I looked around the room at people who genuinely cared about me, who'd proven themselves through actions, not words, who valued me for who I was rather than what I could provide. I realized something important in that moment. I hadn't lost my family that Christmas night when Trevor humiliated me and everyone laughed. I'd lost people who'd never valued me in the first place. They'd been using guilt and obligation to extract resources from me for years, in small ways I'd never fully recognized. The gift exchange had simply made it obvious. Taking back that envelope had been the first time I'd ever set a real boundary with them. It had triggered a crisis because they couldn't accept a world where I didn't exist to serve their needs. And their reaction had shown me exactly who they were. The real gift hadn't been the rent money I'd offered Trevor. The real gift had been the clarity I'd gained when I took it back. I learned that not all family is family. Some people share your blood but not your values. Some relationships are built on love and mutual respect. Others are built on obligation and guilt. The difference matters. I learned that generosity should be given freely, from a place of genuine care, not extracted through manipulation and shame. When someone has to make you feel worthless before asking for help, they don't want to be helped. They want to control you. I learned that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. There's a difference between being kind and being a doormat. I'd spent years confusing the two, letting myself be walked on because I thought that's what good sons do. But good sons deserve good parents. Good brothers deserve good siblings. The obligation goes both ways. I learned that real love doesn't weaponize your kindness. It doesn't humiliate you in public. It doesn't plot and scheme to extract money. It doesn't lie, manipulate, or threaten. Real love is what I found with Aunt Susan and the family members who stood by me. It's what I had with Marcus. It's what I was building with the new people in my life. Most importantly, I learned that my worth isn't determined by what I can provide financially or how useful I am to others. I have value simply by existing. The people who truly love me don't need me to prove anything. They just value me for who I am. That Christmas night, when I said useful to know and took back the envelope, I wasn't being petty or vindictive. I was protecting myself. I was drawing a line. I was saying, for the first time in my life, that I mattered too. The fire I walked through over the following months was painful and expensive and exhausting, but it burned away the false relationships and revealed the true ones. It forced me to see clearly what I'd been avoiding for years, and it gave me the opportunity to build something better. I didn't win because I got money or defeated them in court, though those things helped. I won because I got free. Free from guilt that wasn't mine to carry, free from obligations that were never fair. Free from people who saw me as a resource rather than a person. Sometimes the best gift you can give yourself is knowing when to walk away, and the courage to actually do it. That sealed envelope represented more than 2 months of rent. It represented my self-respect, my boundaries, my right to be treated with dignity. And taking it back was the moment I chose myself over people who'd never really chosen me. I've never regretted it, not for a single day. Looking back now, I'm grateful it happened. Not for the pain, but for the clarity. That Christmas gift exchange was the worst night of my life and the beginning of my best life, because it forced me to see the truth, make hard choices, and build something authentic. The family you choose really is stronger than the family you're born into. And knowing your worth is the greatest gift you can ever give yourself. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever had a moment where you realized someone in your life was manipulating you? Maybe it was subtle. Maybe it was obvious like mine. But there was that instant where everything became clear. How did you handle it? Did you set boundaries? Or did you let it continue? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how others have navigated these difficult situations. If this story resonated with you, please consider hitting the like button. It helps others who might be going through similar struggles find this story and realize they're not alone. Subscribe to hear more real-life stories about overcoming family challenges and finding your strength. And if you know someone who's dealing with toxic family dynamics, share this with them. Sometimes people need to hear that it's okay to choose themselves. Thank you for listening to my story. I know it was long and difficult in places, but I wanted to be honest about the whole journey, not just the easy parts. Remember, you deserve to be treated with respect and kindness, especially by the people who claim to love you. Don't let anyone make you feel worthless for having boundaries. You matter. Your peace matters. Your life matters. Take care of yourselves out there. And remember that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the best outcomes.